The preacher man says...
Okay, here's the headlines. UFOs. U.S. Air Force officers testify on UFO sightings at National Press Club. Said they flew over bases and turned nukes off. That was all over mainstream news. Here's the Mail. Churchill and Eisenhower agreed to cover up UFOs. Here's another report. UFO files. Winston Churchill feared panic over Second World War RAF incidents. And it's just everywhere now. And even when it's clearly not something extraterrestrial, you know, ABC News will point cameras at a Homeland Security blimp at 100,000 feet, even with propellers, and say it's aliens. So, and they've got all these TV shows, The Incident, V. They've got all these groups saying a disclosure is coming. As I said, the UN last week appointing an ambassador for when the aliens land. David Icke, what's going on here?
Well, it's a strange situation in that, on one hand, there are non-human species that are visiting this planet and interacting with it behind the scenes. And this has been going on for a very, very long time. I mean, I've spent 20 years researching this. Other people have too. And I have come across ancient accounts all over the world in almost any ancient culture that you want to talk about, whether it's Africa, South America, whether it's Asia, wherever. And you find these descriptions of non-human entities that were clearly vastly, shall we say, ahead of the humans at that time in terms of technology. I mean, light years ahead, probably literally. And I have spoken to enough people all over the world from every walk of life you can think of, from people in the Swiss banking industry, people in America, people in Australia, people in the bush of Africa. And they have told me compellingly consistent descriptions of their experiences of these different entities, and indeed the descriptions of them, because there are a lot more than one species. The descriptions of them are incredibly consistent, and I have, to much ridicule, not quite so much as before now, but with much ridicule over the years, as you know, Alex, I've talked about the fact that ultimately, behind this human control system, this human bloodline network we call the illuminati, are a or maybe more than one, but certainly one non-human race that seems to take a reptilian form. And, you know, I say this to people before we get on to actually what's going on now. You know, when earlier in this program, Alex, you reeled off element after element after element of this control system and how it's coming in now. I ask people, look at the great spectrum of things that are coming in, the fine detail of it, the way it all interconnects with different elements of itself, the attack on the human body, the banking, the pharmaceutical, the oil, the environmental, and so on and so forth ad infinitum. Are we really saying that all this is being orchestrated by men in dark suits sitting round a table discussing their next move? There is a reason that people like Aldous Huxley and George Orwell, real name Eric Blair, could have access to the projected agenda for this planet decades and decades and decades ago through the Fabian Society, which through these different elements of the secret society network, particularly the really exclusive ones, you can get access to the projected agenda. How can these people talk about drugs that didn't exist? How could they talk about technology that didn't exist, some of which was never even thought of, and yet now we look back at what they wrote in, quote, prophetic novels, and we say, my God, how did they know? Because, Alex, there is a common theme through these thousands of years. People have said to me, it's a very good question over the years, why would these families dedicate their lives over century after century after century to push this agenda on of more and more centralization from the tribal situation? Bring the tribes together under nations. Now bring the nations together under unions, etc., etc. And this incessant centralization that's gone on, not just recently, it's become more obvious recently because it's got quicker, but it's been going on for a long time. Why would these people be born, grow up in these families in the 1600s and 1700s, and give themselves to advancing an agenda which they knew they were not going to see unfold in their lifetime, because there is another force that is the cement, that is the common theme through this period, and it's I would suggest to you it's a non-human force. This is the cement, this is the common theme that holds it all together, because the human families we call the Illuminati are middlemen and women. They are conduits to play out the agenda of a non-human
Well, Christians would say they're basically possessed, demon-possessed, and you'd say, well, that's an interdimensional.
Yeah, it's the same, basically the same thing.
Stay there, David Icke. We'll continue with why they want to have a fake alien landing, why they're gearing up for that. We'll be right back. When do you see them building towards some type of staged event, and why would they do that?
This is the big but at the end of what I said before the break, where I, talked about the reality of non-human life. And, in my latest book, I say this at one point where I'm talking about this very subject. Over the 20 years that I've been on my journey of research all over the world, I've experienced the very different before and after period in the extraterrestrial field. I mean, the before and after a decision was demonstrably made to allow more information about non-human activity to be released bit by bit to the public. And since, of course, the book came out 2 to 3 months ago, as we've been discussing, more and more stories are being put in the media and being given credence and being given official connections to pursue this very situation. But what I also go on to say in the book is that whatever this official disclosure that they're almost certainly leading to, or whatever they say, it's not going to be the truth about what's going on. It's going to be a cover story to get a reaction to advance the agenda we're talking about. And, it's a simple thing. If you want a centralized global dictatorship, and you use, as they do, of course, the technique of what I call problem, reaction, solution, create the problem, get the reaction, do something, and then offer the solution, then if you have a global agenda for global control, then what you need to, in the end...
is Osama bin Laden with green skin.
You need a global problem through which you can offer a global solution. That's what you want, global problems. You don't want just a problem in Utah or something, which someone in Utah can sort out. That you can manipulate Utah.
Hence global warming or terrorism.
Exactly. I mean, this is what I'm going on to say. You're looking at a global war on terror. You are looking at a problem of a global warming, of a global climate change, of course, all made up.
Global poverty.
Trying to sell. And we're looking at, what else are we looking at? A global economic crisis. All these things all these problems, Alex, of course, have global in front of them, because a global problem requires, in the way they're selling it to us, a global solution. Now, what greater global problem can you have? Indeed, as you say, Reagan alluded to it, and others have too, than a global threat to the earth from a non-human race. And we have the kind of research already in place, as you talked about with Project Bluebeam, which actually talks about using things like a fake alien attack to centralize power. Because what would you do in that situation? What do they do in places like Britain when they go to war? They have a war cabinet. They have a few people, not the whole government anymore, a few people around a little table who are making all the decisions. And what they would suggest, if they could sell this alien threat to the people, is they'd want a global equivalent of a war cabinet controlling all the armed forces to meet the threat. They would have them take a gigantic leap to exactly what they want, and this is almost certainly what we're looking at here. And the speed with which, I mean, I've been tracking this for a while now, a few years, but the speed with which that they're now introducing alien threat or UFOs are real kind of stories into the media suggests that we're not a million miles away from some kind of fake disclosure. And one thing that we should also remember, Alex, this is another thing that I've come across many, many times over the years, is just because we see a craft that looks like what people call a flying saucer or whatever, doesn't mean it's flown by non-human entities. It's anti-gravity technology, and of course, as we well know, the technology across the great spectrum of possibility that they have in the underground bases and the secret projects is light years again ahead of what we see in the public arena, and therefore, when we see this technology, people see this technology flying around, because it is so apparently in advance of what we see, we think it must be aliens.
Well, let me stop you.
It has to be. They have this technology, and humans can fly this stuff, and it's not always non-humans that people are seeing, to say the least.
Well, let me throw this out at you, and then we'll let you finish and take calls, David. 10 years ago, or I guess in 99, 11 years ago, I saw headlines in the BBC about Hong Kong markets where you could buy a part rhesus monkey, part jellyfish that glowed in the dark. Right. I saw reports 10, 11 years ago, and actually 12 years ago, had the CEO on upstate New York of part spider goats that produce body armor in their milk. So it's not a stretch that they could take, humans and they have human cloning. And basically breed a glow-in-the-dark human that looks like a space alien, train them up to be a pilot, brainwash them that they are an alien, have them land on the White House lawn and be the ambassador from Jubal Snopple, or from Planet Pop-Tart. I mean, the sky's the limit. Look at the technology they admit they have, and then remember that the B-2 bomber was around for 20 years before they admitted it was, in action. They still say the SR-71 Blackbird, in service in the mid-50s, is the fastest plane we've got. I mean, there's no doubt that and then they admit they have giant hologram projectors, and clearly they're really hyping. If you had to dead reckon when they're going to do this fake alien stuff, it could be this year, next year, it could be any time.
It could be any time. And, the thing is that another aspect of this is that this very reality, what we call the physical world, is actually holographic. Of course, in the way that it manifests itself, it's far more sophisticated. It's the reality in itself than technology can do. But we're still experiencing a holographic reality in what we call the physical world. This is provable stuff if people would only look at it. And so projecting holographic images within a holographic environment already, we could sort of decode that, if you like, and it would look to every bit as much probably as real as the reality looks that we're experiencing, because it's like being projected within a more advanced version of like. And this holographic stuff is very, very important because it has incredible manipulative potential.
Well, it certainly does, and they have patents from the 50s of sound they can project into your middle ear without being able to audibly hear it with regular sound. They admit they have electromagnetic systems that can make you have hallucinations. We know they've used PCP and LSD sprayed on people. During the 6-Day War, they did that. And that's all 30, 40, 50, 60 years old. And so all of this is open to discussion because we know the establishment is looking at it and studying it. And everything they put on mainstream TV has some type of agenda. And so it's just in our face.
This is the point, Alex. They know. The inner core know that the human body is a biological computer system which we use to experience this reality, much like a space suit on the moon or whatever, but obviously a much more sophisticated expression of that theme. And so they are manipulating us in the knowledge that it's a computer system. And these things you're talking about now, projecting sound on a certain frequency that is not audible to the conscious mind, projecting information into the mind, projecting instructions into the mind, perceptions into the mind, they know what they're doing.
No, DARPA admits.
They know it's a computer and they know how to manipulate it. We need to understand that. Yeah. And this is the other point, is that one of the most foundation ways that you manipulate a population is to suppress the information about what is actually possible, because if you can suppress people's perception of what is possible, then when you use technology and techniques that are much beyond what the